Okay. Um, so we've got a lot of people. So let's get started. So hello everyone. Welcome to the first webinar of Katalon Recorder. I'm Thomas. I'm the product manager here at Katalon, and I'm responsible for developing the Recorder product. I'm pleased here to present to you the features, the new exciting features that are going to help you increase the pace of your testing and development activity. So without further ado, let's get started. So here's the agenda of today's presentation. First, I'm gonna talk a bit about Katalon Recorder for those of you who are new here. And I'm gonna go through some of the features of Katalon Recorder 5.5.0, which is the latest major release. And I'm gonna explain how the features can help you in testing, developing, and automating the task. So let's get started. So first, what is Katalon Recorder? So Katalon Recorder is a browser automation tool that can help you capture interactions on the websites and turn them into automation scripts that can be modified, executed, and integrated with other products or services. We are currently available on Chrome, Firefox, and recently we introduced the extension to the Edge Store. So who should use Katalon Recorder and for what purpose? Well, if you are a working professional who's looking to do more knowledge work but stuck doing repetitive tasks, then you can use Katalon Recorder to automate these easily. If you are a tester who's interested in doing more exploratory testing or high-level test planning, then you can use Katalon Recorder to generate and run the regression tests so you don't have to manually execute them yourself. If you are a developer, then one of the things you have to maintain is that your code doesn't break any mission critical user experience. And for that purpose, you can also use Katalon Recorder to generate and run end-to-end tests easily and quickly. Because the recorder is a browser extension, you don't have to ask for your organizations for infrastructure or permission to use the tool. So uh, these are these are the use cases along with the personas that can benefit from the Katalon Recorder product. So let's move on to the main items of today's presentation. First, I want to talk about self-healing. So what is self-healing? Self-healing is a mechanism that automatically tries different locators and it continues the execution if it ever finds a valid locator. So let me break it down to the terminology, some of the terminologies that some of you are working professionals who may not be familiar with. So automation scripts can fail, obviously, and one of the most common causes of failures is that the websites changed since the last time you recorded, or that the websites contain elements that change automatically. We call them dynamic elements. So in a recorder, uh, we use locators to identify elements. So you can think of locators sort of like a descriptions of elements. So imagine that you give your friend an instruction to find your house with a blue door. So if on that fateful day you decide to paint the door red or paint the door in a different color, then there's no way your friend is gonna be able to find your house using merely your description. So the description is invalid in a sense. So the same analogy applies to elements. So a description for an element is what the recorder used to locate an element. And if that description is invalid, then Katalon Recorder is not going to be able to find that element. And when that happens, now previously when that happens, you have to manually pick a different locator and just rerun the test to see if the new locator or the new description of the element works. So let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, let's move to a less distracting side. So this is Katalon Recorder. So when you record your scripts, Katalon Recorder is gonna automatically generate a bunch of different locators. So the locators are available here, as you can see. And these locators again are descriptions of elements. So if the locator is invalid, that means the websites have changed or the elements are dynamic, then previously you have to pick another locator from this list, for example, and just rerun the test to see if it works. Of course, the problem with this is that it presumes that you have to know what locators are, and that may not be true for all of you here, especially for non-technical people. And even if you know about the locators, the efforts, if the websites change a lot, or if there are a lot of dynamic elements, the effort to manually pick a different locator is gonna seriously impact the maintenance efforts. So that's why we've introduced this self-healing feature. It's gonna automatically try out other locators and continue the execution if it ever finds a valid locator. So again, it's gonna try all of the locators available and it continues the execution if it ever finds one. So by default, self-healing is enabled. So that means you don't have to do anything in order to benefit from this feature. So let me demonstrate to you a situation when the locator is invalid. So here, for example, at this step, I've modified the locator so that it's invalid, and I'm gonna execute this test. And right now, self-healing is enabled, so you can see how exactly it works. So just execute this test. So the test to pass, and that's because self-healing is enabled. As you can see, when self-healing is enabled, it's gonna automatically search for a working locator. In this case, it's this one. And the reason is that because it is the first expat that I've introduced into the list of locators. So this is a variable. A locator can contain a variable, which is just another way to reuse values. You don't have to pay attention to that. The important thing to note here is that self-healing has automatically tried out a different locator and it continues the execution. So imagine a lot of elements ha- a lot of elements have changed. That means that you're gonna have a list of self-healing proposals, which are just uh, these lines here. They detail the name of the test case, the status, the locator that is broken, and the locator that is working. And if there are multiple elements like that, you can automatically update all of the broken locators with the proposed locators. So what happens if you don't update them? Nothing. Self-healing is gonna still be triggered the next time you execute a test, but you can automatically update the broken locators with the correct ones to speed up the execution process. So again, here you have a filter. You can filter according to the status of the test case, and you can just approve all of the proposed locators for the tests that have passed. So just click on approve, and what will happen is that this broken locator is going to be replaced by this locator. So uh, just click on approve, and here you can see. And let us execute this again to see if it actually works. As you can see here, self-healing is not triggered. That means that there are no broken locators within the test. And so we have successfully uh, approved self-healing proposals. So like I said, self-healing is enabled automatically. You can disable it, although it's not recommended, by going to the setting here and click on self-healing and just tick off this checkbox, enable self-healing execution. So these are some settings that you can configure. This is the this is the order of the type of locators that will be tried out first. So ID, each element can contain an ID, which is a unique identifier that the developer of the site puts there to uniquely identify the element. Or a locator can be an expat, which is just a type of locator, a type of description. It can be a CS locator. So you can prioritize this list here. And when you do it, what will happen is that the, for example, if you prioritize the CS locator first, then Self-Healing is gonna look into the CS locators first and then use and then try out these. If it finds one that is valid, it's gonna use that to continue the execution. So for example, with this particular setting, um, Self-Healing is gonna actually use this one. So let me actually explain to you these exclude commands from self-healing before I show you how you can change the order of the locators. So um, self-healing is not really a something that you can. It's not something that should be used all the times, and that is because sometimes the cost of uh, misidentifying an element outweighs the cost of actually uh, finding of failing the test. I mean, so what I mean by that is that imagine that you want to verify an element is present on a page, and if self-healing is triggered, then sorry, the dog is barking. But if self-healing is triggered, then there's a probability that the element is going to be misidentified. So self-healing can use a invalid locator, not an invalid, but a locator that identifies a wrong element, and that's going to be used to continue the execution. So in that case, you don't want to trigger self-healing on the verify and assert statements, and then these are the reasons why these verify and assert statements are automatically in the excluded list here. Of course, you can add other commands here. If you don't want self-healing to be triggered on a click action, you can just type in click action here. But then just for that's just for example, of course, you can remove it and just save it. And so again, let me make this into an invalid locator and then execute the test again. And this time, self-healing should use the CS locator. As you can see here, it used the CS locator as we configure. And this is really convenient because not every website follows the same rule, and that means that each type of locator works better on particular kind of websites. And not only you can configure the order of the type of locators, you can actually configure the actual order of the locators here. So let me show you. For example, here you have many expat locators. So what you can do is that you can drag and drop the locators to change the orders in which self-healing is gonna try it out these locators. So if I configure expert to be the top priority in the setting, and I move this to the top of the expert list, then this one will be tried out first by self-healing. And this provides you with great flexibility, especially when you when you write your own expert locator. You can customize the priority of locators for each element, and that's going to help you reduce the maintenance efforts greatly. So that's self-healing, and that's the first item of the major release, the self-healing. So again, just to recap, self-healing is a mechanism that will automatically try out different locators, and it's gonna continue the execution if it ever finds a valid one. And after the execution is finished, you can go into the self-healing tab and then view the self-healing proposals, which test which broken locators are there and which are the proposed locators, and you can approve them. So that's the recap of the self-healing feature. Okay, let's get back to the slide. And again, the whole rationale for this feature is that if usually you can fix the test just by picking a different locator, then why not automate it? And that's self-healing essentially. And like I said, you can change the order of the locators and you can exclude certain commands from the list. So let's move on to the second feature of this latest release of Katalon Recorder, and that would be migration from Selenium IDE. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Selenium IDE, it's also a browser automation tool that allows you to capture interactions on websites and turn them into automation scripts. Uh, Selenium IDE is a very popular tool, and however, despite its popularity, there are some errors that can be improved, and those are also coincidentally the areas where Katalon Recorder has advantage over Selenium IDE. So some of the problems are obviously that if you ever use Selenium IDE, you may notice is that you can't really open the app and start automating immediately. So let me show you what I mean by that. So here, you have to provide. You have first to have to choose among these options. Then you have to provide a project name. Then you have to provide a URL, and only then you can start recording. So these are minor steps. However, if you consider uh, the s- the amount of time that you use the product, uh, it's gonna compound to a very time-consuming process as a whole when you view it from from a holistic point of view. And so uh, that's an area where Selenium IDE is a bit can be a bit bulky, clunky. And then second of all, it cannot combine manual and automation efforts. So Selenium IDE always records and executes on a new tab. So that means that whatever you do on a current tab, you can't use Selenium IDE to pick up from there and execute the automation scripts. And likewise, you can't really combine automation scripts and manual activities with Selenium IDE, especially if you are a developer or a tester who wants to test a certain feature, but before you get to the main screen, you have to get through a number of of pages and actions. then you don't want to do all these steps over again every time you want to test. It's just better if you can just execute the automation script on the currently active tab. And that's exactly what Katalon Recorder provides. It can execute and record on the currently active tab. So you can combine manual and automation together seamlessly. And if you open Katalon Recorder, you can just click on the record button immediately to start recording. You don't have to create a test case or a test suite even. Just click on record, and if there is no test case available, it's going to generate it, a test suite and a test case for you. So it it really provides a fast time to value in a sense. Um, and the third point is that Selenium IDE doesn't have consistent development efforts. So if you look at the date of when Selenium IDE was updated, it's August 2020. So that means it's more than a year ago. And for Katalon Recorder, we release almost weekly. So really, we are professionally committed to improve the product continuously and listen to our users and resolve your questions. So really, a lot of uh, a lot of things can be resolved if you have a team professionally dedicated to help you. So that's the third point. And finally, Catalan Recorder doesn't really exist in a vacuum. It exists in an ecosystem of Catalan products. So for example, we have Catalan Studio, which is an IDE for authoring tests. And we have TestOps, which is a test orchestration platform. You can use it to store execution reports. And that's because Katalon Recorder has a built-in integration with Katalon TestOps. So you can execute your scripts, your automation scripts, and then push the results to TestOps. So you can see the trend of your execution, whether it's taking more time, whether it's failing more often, and then you can optimize your efforts in testing or development. So with all of these points that Selenium IDE, all of these areas that Selenium IDE may be lacking in, the solution here is to provide a way to migrate to Katalon Recorder. So let me show you how that works. So first, uh, let me open Selenium IDE first and open an existing project. So these are the test cases. These are the automation scripts that I created in Selenium IDE. It ranges from a simple record and playback uh, scenario to other scenarios involving the use of if-else statements, conditional statements, uh, loops, while loops, and verify assert elements, and finally executing the JavaScript. So for this latest release of Katalon Recorder, we actually support all of these scenarios: simple record playback, if else, while loops, verify assert, execute JavaScript, and you can let me show you how you can import those tests into Katalon Recorder. So just open it. And here is a very obvious icon of Selenium IDE. So if you just click on it and click on this Selenium IDE project and click OK. And there are certain things you have to pay attention to is that Katalon Recorder and Selenium IDE are not 100% compatible. This means that there are certain commands that Selenium IDE has that we don't have, and vice versa. So Katalon Recorder is gonna tell you uh, if there are incompatible commands in your project, and they will be deleted to try to make the test functional. And you can also click on this doc here to see the list of commands and the let me see if this browser is working. Excuse me. Well, maybe something is wrong with the connection. Let me try on Chrome. Sure. Okay, so it looks like this dock is broken somehow. I'm gonna fix it. No, don't worry. But yeah, you can see the list of. You can also go to the documentation page of Katalon and see the list of compatible commands between Selenium IDE and Katalon Recorder. So here, these are the imported scenarios here. As you can see, some of the syntaxes are not really the same exactly. In Recorder, you don't have to. Sometimes you can use a variable syntax here, but for the store command, you don't have to. And let me execute this test suite to show that uh, you just have to import and execute, and that's all you need to do. So let's execute this test suite. Okay, looks like the internet connection is very shaky. Let me try that again. Yep, uh, it's executing well. So another point worth noting is that the locators between Selenium IDE and Katalon Recorder are not exactly compatible. However, thanks to the new self-healing feature, you can see that even if the locators, the imported tests contain locators that are invalid in Katalon Recorder, uh, there are still locators that are compatible, and self-healing is going to use these compatible locators uh, to execute, to continue the execution. So let's execute this also. It's a bit slow due to the internet connection, but you get the idea. Yep. So that's how you can import tests from Selenium IDE to Katalon Recorder. Again, just to recap, why should you use Katalon Recorder? There are several points worth noting, but I suppose the most important thing is that you can combine manual and automation in Katalon Recorder, and you can also integrate Katalon Recorder with existing Katalon products such as Katalon TestOps and Katalon Studio, and these can be really helpful when you want to scale your test automation project, especially for test app. You can use it as a analytic tool for storing the execution results. So that's uh, that's that's the second feature of this latest release. And let me go to the slides here. Yeah, so just to reiterate over the value propositions of recorder, fast time to value, um, integration between manual and automation, consistent product development, and community, which, by the way, I'm likely the one who will help you with Katalon Recorder issues. So please feel free to open a forum on a thread on forum. I'll be really glad to support you. And finally, extensible, which means that you can use recorder in the context of an ecosystem. So let me show you a Katalon TestOps, which is a companion product to Katalon Recorder, and I'll show you how you can use TestOps along with the Recorder product to really optimize your testing efforts. Uh, Okay, really, the internet right now is just extremely slow. Then again, it might be that this is the last day before the lockdown, so everyone is staying home, I guess. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so maybe not right now. Gonna come back later if it still have time, but uh, let's let us go through the slide here because I have a slide that demonstrates test up. So here you can upload the execution results to test up from Katalon Recorder. Of course, you need a Katalon account, but if you have signed up for an account to use Katalon Recorder, then that account is also you can also use that account to log into test up. And then desktop does have a free version, and also the recorders. This is also a free product. So this is a chart. You can see the trend of execution, whether it's slowing down or speeding up over time, the frequency of failures and success test cases, and TestUp really provides you with a lot of analytic tools that you can use to optimize your testing or automation efforts. A lot of different types of reports that you can use. And so you don't have to be a tester or a developer to use TestUp. Okay, so let's move on to the final feature of Katalon Recorder, and I think this is quite exciting. And it's the ability to execute tasks uh, from the command line interface. So the problem we're trying to solve here is that after talking to our users, we have first of all we're really excited to see that a lot of people use Katalon Recorder on a daily basis to develop and execute automation scripts. But then one of the problems they also raise up frequently is that they want to execute more and more frequently. And really, right now you have to open your browser, open the app, and choose your test it, then execute it. And while this is okay, I mean, the recorder is just designed so that you can execute tests really conveniently. There are still there is still more to be desired, and that's why we introduced this command line runner. for you to execute tests more frequently, automation scripts more frequently. So the recorder, the command line, the Katalon Recorder command line runner is a command line program. It is a Node.js program. You can install it using, you can install it through the npm site, Recorder command line runner. You can go to the documentation and go to this link to download the command line runner using this command. You can specify the option to install it globally, or you can install it in your local Node.js project. So to get started, it is really easy. Just if you have npm install, you can just type in this command and wait for it to download. So the command line runner comes in two modes, right? The first mode is for QA, and this is the mode that provides you with the option to customize the location of the folder report, the location of your data files, and of course you have to specify the target for the command line runner. But then the syntax is rather easy. So let me show you exactly how that works. So I have installed the command line runner in my machine. And if I want to, for example, if I have a test suite in this folder, and this test suite use this data file, and I want to execute this test suite with this data file and output the reports into this folder, then I can do this like this. I can do it like this. Run and drag and drop this into the, of course you have to specify the browser. I'm gonna run it with Firefox. And then specify the data parameter. Scroll this in. If you have multiple data files, you just have to separate them with this comma, and that should work. And finally, the report folder. So with this syntax, it's gonna execute this test suite with this data file and outputs the report files into this report folder. All right, again, this is the age we're living in, people. Slow internet connection. And I swear to God, it's just slow whenever I'm doing a webinar, which is just funny. But well, you get the point. Despite the internet connection, it's gonna finish executing this whole test suite, and then it's gonna output the log files and the report file into this the specified folder. Okay, let's see. Can do this. Yep. Seems to be waiting for the page to finish loading. So I can do this to speed up the execution. Okay. And also it's gonna print out these logs into the console that you're using. All right. It's going to open this. Ah, this is embarrassing, but bear with me. Mm, all right. So that's how it works. If you can go to this report folder, you can see that the CSV report file here is generated. Of course, it's gonna just contain the execution results. You can use it with Excel, and you can view it with Excel and other applications. And you can also look at the execution log. Uh, and this will be the exact same thing that is printed out in the console in the terminal on Mac. So that's the first mode, which is for QA, and it provides you with great flexibility to specify the location of the report folder and the data files. So the second and the second mode is for developer, and this is much uh, it is less flexible in a sense, but it is much easier to use because I know the developers they tend to dislike complexity because well they already have enough complexity in their day-to-day job. So it's best to simplify the work for them. So for uh, developers, so you can install the command line runner in a Node.js project. So this is an empty Node.js project, as you can see from the name suggest here. But then once you install the Katalon Recorder command line runner into your Node.js project, then you just have to specify uh, the you just have to put the test suites and the data files you want to execute into this folder here. And for developers, you can put multiple test suites, multiple data files. They will all be used for execution as long as they in this KR test folder. So using this syntax, we're gonna execute all of the tests in the what? Okay, right. Using the syntax, you can execute all the test suites in a folder. And it's really convenient to integrate the command line runner into your web project. You can use Katalon Recorder to generate the end-to-end test for your project. And then you can use the command line runner to execute the end-to-end test in your project from uh, command line, which is very convenient and then something that developers are very familiar with the command line tools. So with the when you're running in the development mode, uh, the command line runner is not gonna print out the detailed logs as it will in the QA mode, but instead you will have a nice summary printed out in the console here. So again, let me see if I can speed it up. Okay, let's speed this up, shall we? Right. Yep. So as I said, in development mode, uh, the command line runner is gonna not gonna print out the detail logs, but instead it's gonna print out a nice summary, and it's convenient when you don't want to clutter your project with the report and log files. So you can just use it this way. So yep, so that's just how you can use the command line runner. Okay, so I've finished demonstrating all three features of this major release. And before we go to the Q&A, where I'm gonna answer the questions that you raised in the chat or in the Q&A section, let us do a small poll. So is everyone seeing the poll now? Okay. Yep, it started. Okay, so the poll should be visible now, and I would like all of you to spend a few seconds to answer the poll. It would be very appreciated. So I'm gonna wait for 2 minutes before I move on to the Q&A section. So a minute left to go. Okay, 30 more seconds to go. All right. Okay, so let's move on to the Q&A section. Uh, but let's move on to the Q&A section. So let's go through some of the questions. Okay. So does self-healing and automation work with React-based application? So the answer is yes. Um, Katalon Recorder does work with React-based applications, Angular, React, as long as it renders to a web page, an HTML page. Katalon Recorder is going to be able to automate it. So from Guy mentioned, can self-healing to be set to offer suggestions instead of automatically substituting identifiers? That's an interesting question. So currently, no, because self-healing is designed to be triggered automatically. So it can really just automatically tries the locators and continue the execution because that's just really the most convenient path for users. So the heuristic that self-healing use is it's based on best practice really. By default, the order of the locator is will be ID, expert, CSS, and that is because well ID is probably the most robust type of locator, followed by expert most of the time, and then CSS for other cases. So hopefully that answers the question. Uh, will there be the ability to add additional locators to the settings? Yeah, you can add custom locators to the settings definitely. And then this feature will be added and documented in the future. So great question, by the way. Thank you. Can you use Katalon Recorder to record package applications like SAP GUI? So if it's a web application, then yeah, you can use it. You can use the recorder to automate it. But then otherwise, if it's not, if it's a desktop application, then no, I'm afraid not. Can you use the existing browser? Uh, Wait a minute. Your question just disappeared. Is Katalon Recorder a paid tool? So no, it's a community tool. It's going to remain free. And this yeah, the will this webinar be recorded and available afterward? Yeah, definitely. It's going to be available afterward. So for recorder, would it be possible to pass a parameter uh, from the shell and specify base URL? Yep. So currently, there will be a plan to do that. Eventually, we want to add that capability to the command line runner, but in the beta version, that's not available yet. Okay. How do you handle dynamic element IDs? So in XBAT, you can use a content syntax. If your ID starts with it, if your ID contains a fixed string along with other parts that are dynamic, you can use the content syntax to do that. But it's a bit advanced. Otherwise, you can rely on self-healing to automatically try out different locators. Okay, so let's pick a few questions. Um, is it possible to record and generate Java or Groovy code? Yep. So uh, in the recorder, you can generate you can convert your scripts into other testing frameworks and languages. We support Katalon Studio, Java for with WebJava TestNG, uh, WebJava in Unit, and we also support Puppeteer and a dozen of other languages and testing frameworks as well. So, so we can modify the test case. Yes, of course you can. After you record it, you can modify the test using this interface here. Can drag and drop, undo, redo it, uh, and then a lot of things. So okay, so I think we're running out of time. If you have further questions, please please ask them in the forum, or just forward your an email to Calon email, and we will be glad to answer it for you. So thank you for your time, everyone. I hope this webinar has been useful for you, and I hope everyone tries out these features, and then you can see if it works for you and give me feedback so that the team can um, improve the product. Thank you, everyone. The recording will be available after this webinar shortly. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your participation and stay safe. Goodbye.